my name is Samantha, or Outspoken Samantha, or Outspoken Sam, depending on what platform you're watching this on. On my channel, I like to talk about current events and issues that I actually think matter to everyday people. You know, those of us who are not CEOs of big corporations, who are not part of the mainstream media, who don't live in the Hollywood bubble, and who are not politicians in Washington, D.C. You know, those of us who actually have to live with the consequences of the decisions being made by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If you can relate to everyday Americans and you want to support another voice of logic and reason, please consider subscribing to my channel, like this video, and share it if you think it's worth sharing. All of those things help to support my channel and expand my reach and hopefully find other people that value logic and reason. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Sam in the event that YouTube decides that I have violated their community standards, and they choose to kick me off their platform forever. It's not a matter of if, it's probably a matter of when. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So what I wanted to talk about today is gender ideology, or as I like to call it, gender confusion. You know, everybody has an issue that kind of resonates with their soul. There are a lot of things to pick from today, a lot of things to get fired up about, a lot of things to feel like you have to focus on. For me, sometimes I just really need to talk about the thing that really resonates with me, and that is this particular topic. It honestly makes me angry on a cellular level. These are our kids, these are our babies, and these are our kids, these are my kids, these are your kids, and they are really being targeted and manipulated with concepts and ideas that they are just not mature enough to handle. And the effort is relentless. It really is relentless to turn them all into these identityless human beings with no foundation and no boundaries, no attachment to reality, no attachment between their mind and body, and no understanding of who or what they are. And it's, when I say relentless, I mean relentless. Your kid can go to school and participate in a drag queen story hour in their library, and then go back to the classroom where their teacher has, you know, pride pins and paraphernalia all over their desk in their classroom. Their teacher wants to talk to them about their intimate relationship with their partner, and, you know, encourage classroom discussions about what that means. And then they go and sit at their desk and they have an assignment where they have to talk about what pride is and what it means and what it stands for. And then at the end of the day, there might be a pride parade where they walk through the hall with pride flags on their shoulders and little, you know, bells and whistles celebrating this thing that the teachers and the parents around them just seem to be really, really excited about. So when I say relentless, I mean relentless. And we even have videos of teachers having kids pledge allegiance to a pride flag, which is completely insane to me. So this is relentless. Kids are just being hammered with this stuff nonstop. And of course you see people who are advocates of this ideology, who are activists. They sit back and they say it's harmless, it doesn't matter. If your kid isn't trans, they're not going to be affected by this. They'll be straight, they'll be fine, they'll be cis, whatever the word of the day is. And that's really, really, really not true. And we know it's not true. So, you know, when someone says, I even saw a comment the other day where someone was like, well, just because a kid reads about something doesn't mean that that's what they're going to be. That's what they're going to grow up to be. And, you know, that's fair to an extent. But there is a reason that we use storybooks to teach children concepts. If you want to teach a child to be kind, you read them a story about people being kind to each other. You involve colors and pictures and characters and a storyline that they can relate to. It might be set in a park or in a school or at a friend's birthday party. If you want to teach a child about hard work or overcoming challenges, you read them a story about hard work and overcoming challenges. This is the way that kids absorb information, and you don't have to have a degree in child psychology or education to understand that. As a parent, if I want my child to understand a concept and to internalize it and to absorb it, I will look up books on a particular topic that have a story around that topic. with pictures and colorful visual aids and concepts that using words that they understand. So to say that just because it's in a book doesn't mean that it's going to influence a child and how they think is completely ridiculous, because this is a teaching method that we have used from the beginning of time to teach children things and for them to absorb information and concepts and ideas and internalize them and then be able to remember them throughout their day and throughout their week and apply them in the scenarios that they read about in the book. So to say that it's harmless and that it doesn't impact them is completely ridiculous. But what we've also seen is kind of this playing with words and saying that we're just teaching kids about kindness and inclusion and tolerance and all of these concepts that we already teach kids, that kids already naturally exhibit. And it's funny, the reason that I say that it's kind of a playing with words is because they tie this idea of gender ideology and gender identity to the notion that we're just teaching kids inclusion and kindness and sharing and all of these things that all of us want our kids to learn and to know. But the reason they do that is because if we say, well, I don't want my kid to learn about gender identity, especially when they're 6 and 7 and 8 years old, then automatically you will be accused of not wanting your child to learn about kindness and inclusion. So that's why they tie those things together, so that they can target you as a parent, so that you can feel guilty in saying, well, if I don't let my kid learn that they can be a girl or a boy, that they can be the opposite of how they were born, then I must, then everyone's going to think that I don't want my child to learn to be kind, which is absolutely insane. Because we can teach kids to be kind and to share and to be loving and accepting and tolerant and to serve and to love the people around them without talking about gender, because we've been teaching them these things for decades, for hundreds of years, without talking about gender. So kids absorb what we tell them, especially when it comes from the people that they trust, the adults around them that are authority figures, that their parents have entrusted them with, that are their parents. When it's a trusted figure, especially, they come to them and say that this is real and this is legitimate. That's why they believe you when you say that Santa Claus is real, or that if they don't eat their vegetables, they're going to turn into a zombie, which is something I may or may not have told my children when they were young. But that's why they believe you. When you say that a little fairy can fly into their room in the middle of the night and exchange their teeth for money, they believe you because they trust you and they don't think that you're going to teach them things that are harmful to them. So that is why this is in schools. That is why it is in story format. That is why it is gender identity is tied to concepts such as kindness and inclusion. It's all these things tied together to make it almost seem like it's impossible to say no to protect your child from. So I was looking at a couple of the books that I know are in children's schools because I've seen parents talk about it. I've even seen teachers post pictures of these books in their classrooms. There's one called what is it called? Sorry, I'm just scrolling here. It Feels Good to Be Yourself. Fairly harmless concept because we want kids to feel good about who they are, to feel comfortable in their own skin, to feel confident in who they are as an individual. But it also says it's a book about gender identity. On the first page, or one of the first pages, it says, when Alex was born, everyone thought Alex was a girl, but Alex is both boy and girl. This is Alex's gender identity. A kid is going to look at that and be like, I don't know what a gender identity is, but it sounds pretty cool to be able to switch between being a boy and a girl. That's almost like if I wake up one day and want to be a mermaid. Like, that is how kids absorb this information. If I read a story about mermaids to my daughter, she will spend 2 or 3 days after that telling me that she is a real mermaid. And I say that because it's happened before. In some of these other pages, it says you might feel like a boy, you might feel like a girl, you might feel like both a boy and a girl, or neither. You might feel like your gender changes from day to day or from year to year. There is no possible way a child is going to understand what the heck you are talking about. Another book that I found is called I Am Jazz. And what is really interesting is I was reading through the reviews about this book, and there was one that said, from someone that said they have a degree in child psychology. And I thought that her review, or their review, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, I feel like it's a woman, but some of the points that she made, and she relates it to her own story, I think it's important. I'm going to read it. It says, I checked out this book at my local library. I have a degree in child psychology. I've always been a big supporter of the LGBTQ community, as both of my siblings are gay. I grew up with a sister with gender identity issues. I am warning you, introducing trans topics like this to highly suggestible children is child abuse. And let me explain why. I will talk about my sister's journey as well to solidify my theory. The prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until around age 25. Children don't even understand the differences between boys and girls until about age 9. Introducing this at such a young age will only plant seeds and confuse children and not address the underlying issues the child is going through. Schools, caregivers, and teachers introducing this topic are setting our kids down a path of irreversible psychological and physical damage. 20% of trans commit suicide because the underlying psychological issues were never addressed. And many others that transitioned before their prefrontal cortex is developed have reversals and have to live with the mutilation they did to their bodies. Now, about my sister. My mom would try and dress her in dresses, but my sister would scream, "No, I'm a boy, I'm a boy." My mom didn't make it a big deal and let her strap on her boots, her big brother's clothes, and let her climb trees and ride her big wheel. My sister would get into fistfights with other boys because she had a temper, and because her hair was so short and she looked like a boy, the boys thought that they were getting into a fight with another boy. Not until we moved away from our childhood home, which is right about when she got her surge of female hormones, did she start to embrace her femininity, grew her hair long, and wore girl clothes. Come to find out, the childhood home we grew up with had an old pedo that she and I used to go to his house every day after school because he would help my single mother of 3 by watching and feeding us. We were always short on food and had a chaotic and bipolar mother who would shower us with love and praise one moment and be evil and cruel to us the next. And we had no father figure. So going to his house was an escape. Unfortunately, he took advantage of that with us. I stopped it at an early age, and he promised never to touch me again if I didn't tell my mom, which would have been hard to do anyway since my mom held him up on a pedestal. But my poor sister continued the abuse. Not until we moved away did she embrace her femininity. She also loves being a girl. Imagine if she was growing up in today's society, she would have been fostered into transitioning, be out on hormone blockers that would have potentially made her sterile, never felt the surge of her beautiful female hormones, gotten a double mastectomy, which many 16-year-olds are doing right now, and probably commit suicide by the age 20 to 25 because she realized that changing her gender and mutilating her body didn't fix the psychological torment and demons in her head caused by years of sexual abuse, mental and physical abuse in the home, and no father figure. This is the path you are setting our children on by allowing comprehensive sexuality education to go into our schools and introducing this stuff at an early age. It's child abuse. And I couldn't agree more. And not to say that every child that decides to be or is influenced into being transgender has trauma of some kind, but there is generally an underlying issue. Specifically, I have seen so many stories of teens who go to school and they have depression or anxiety of some kind, and automatically they are told, well, it must be because you are transgender, or that you want to be the opposite of how you were born. And the underlying issue is never addressed. So I know we hear these statistics all the time about how transgender kids are committing suicide and these things, but it's because these underlying issues that they have, anytime a child shows up with some kind of problem that they need psychological help with, the adults around them and these woke activists pretending to be teachers and pretending to be therapists are saying, oh, it must mean that you need to be the opposite of how you were born, the opposite gender. So what I want to just end with is take back your power as your child's parent. These ideas are not only harmful to kids when they're being taught in such an aggressive way with no boundaries and no safety net from their parents. It is not the school's place to be teaching your children about sexuality and about morality and these different kinds of issues. This is not teacher territory. This is your territory. It is your job to teach your child what inclusion means. It is your job to teach your child what kindness means and what love and acceptance means. And it is also your job to guide these conversations with your children and to create that safety net and that safe space so that they can ask questions. This is not something that will not have repercussions. This is not something that is harmless and doesn't have, a bigger ripple effect for the future. Our children need us to step in for them and to tell our teachers and our schools that our kids need to be back to learning reading, writing, spelling, geography, history, accurate history, and to leave the gender discussions for parents and families and for these safe spaces, and that this is not what the public education system is for. So please be sure to like and subscribe, turn on the notifications so that you will get notified every time I post a video. Sometimes it'll be longer videos with kind of a deeper dive into these topics. Other times it'll just be kind of a quick take on a trending video and something silly going on in the media, because we know that there's a lot of that to choose from. I appreciate you taking a minute to watch. Please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your experiences, especially if you've had a child in these environments that are reading these books and kind of what their perception has been. I will keep up to date. There are so many more aspects of this topic, and I do want to talk about a lot of other things and not just gender ideology. But like I said, this is something that just really makes my hair burst into flames. Let me know what you think. Also suggestions on how I can grow this channel and how I can expand it and make better, more professional videos, I guess. So I appreciate you being here. So I will talk to you soon.